Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Relentless. I know that this is your favorite fitness podcast. I am your host, Eleanor McCabe, and I am joined once again by my lovely co-host, Lexa.
Hello.
And we are continuing our series, which we have a lot of episodes for y'all, so I hope you're ready. But today we are going to give you 6 things that our most successful athletes do. So make sure that you are ears open because I know that y'all are successful athletes and maybe you can pick up some things in here that you didn't know that we love. So
yeah. And also, if you notice that there are some of these things that maybe you don't do or you don't want to do, maybe like asking why that might be a good place to start for yourself. Because I feel like my athletes are always asking like, how can I do better? Like, what do you need to see from me? And it's like, oh, okay, let's dive in then.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that. I get that question a lot as well, where it's like, where do you think I could be improving or what can I do better? And usually most of the time, like number one, my answer is training. And I think that in general, for everybody across the board, like training is a really great place that you can always find improvement because you're never going to get to a point within your training that you just know everything and it's all perfect and everything's good. There's always something, whether that is like with your form, your technique, with your mind to muscle connection, with what you're focusing on, the kind of training style that you're doing. I think that there's just so many different ways that you can train that there's not ever going to be the perfect training. Do you agree?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. And that's like the fun thing because I think a lot of people who send their training videos and I have critiques for them, they're, oh my gosh, like I'm doing so many things wrong. And it's like, no, these are all the things that we can actually improve on. These are different things that maybe we haven't thought of before. These are things that maybe only work for you and we need to explore that together. So if you don't want to send training videos because you don't feel like you're doing things correctly or you think you're doing things wrong and you look stupid, that's pretty much never the answer. I've never really had that. It's more just how can we help you grow and help you feel into your body even better, even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first and foremost, you guys send your training videos. There's always going to be room to improve there.
And that's also fun too, because even when we were training, like I learned from you just like, oh, why are you doing this with your glutes and why are you doing this with your knees? Like I don't do it that way, just like feeling into how other people train. And like with us with the lats the other day too, just not calling you out and just saying there's very different things that we haven't tried yet. And that's like a really fun piece. So also if you can get a training partner too, like that's also a really great piece. I've really enjoyed training with Noah the past few days.
Me too. So what she was talking about, the high to low rows, oh my gosh. Well, I've always thought that I had like a nice back. So I kind of feel like my back training probably needs the most work because I haven't been paying much attention. Like I'm like, oh, I have a big back naturally, but I think it's getting to the point where it's like, okay, you still have to train your back, Noah. Like you can't just neglect it. And so doing those high to low rows, like all sorts of things were wonky. And it was very humbling. It was surprising to me that I was like, wow, I can't get my body to move in this way. Like it just literally doesn't know how to. And so I think it's very useful to have a training partner for sure.
Yeah. If you're really good at one type of movement, like really, like maybe you can really lock into isolation, but some of the compounds that require more of your full body, I notice this in a lot of bodybuilders because we are taught to isolate the muscle and make sure your joints are only doing with like one joint per thing. But it's like, oh, we actually have to use the entire body for some of these lifts or vice versa. Like maybe you're really good at using your whole body and then isolating is not for you. So some people are like, why would I send my leg extension videos? Like that doesn't seem necessary. I'm like, send them anyway. I want to see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Training.
Send training videos.
Would you say that your athletes that consistently send their training progress faster than those who don't?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Across the board. That's one of the things that I see a lot of coaches say, and I 100% agree. Could not agree more.
Yeah. I feel like that is actually one of the things that everybody says that it's a universal truth. Like it's like, okay, cool. I can get on board with that because it is true for everybody.
Yeah. And as far as people not sending training videos, one of the things that I hear the most often is I don't want to film myself in the gym. And I totally get that, especially if you're in a gym that everyone's kind of like already recording and there's tripods everywhere, and maybe you're very considerate and we appreciate you not wanting to film people in the background, and also you're there to get better, you're there to improve, and like you have as much stake and as much reason to be in the gym, and you should also want to get better. So if you can just like find a little corner, or if you can, have your tripod right in the middle like everyone else does, like you deserve that space. Like take up all of the space, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a really great point too. I've also heard people are just like nervous to film in the gym because maybe nobody else in their gym is filming. And so I kind of tell them maybe to break that ice. Like you don't need that big tripod. You could just prop it like on the side. And it is a little bit harder that way, like getting a good angle, like the proper way to set it up so that we can see what you're training. But I do feel like some of my athletes prefer to like prop it up on their water bottle, just nice and close to them in their little enclosed space, so they don't feel like, oh, I'm going to get all this attention for a tripod. Because now there's like, I almost feel like there's a stigma around people who film at the gym with a tripod, which I don't believe in. I think, like you said, everyone's there to get better. You never know why somebody's filming. They might not be filming for social media. They might be filming for their coach, like filming to see what they're doing. But I know that it is intimidating for some people. So you can hide your phone, you can like prop it on a water bottle, on your backpack, and kind of be a little bit more discreet in that way.
Can I share a funny?
Uh-huh.
I tried to record myself on like one of the benches with it really close to me on like the 0.5 thing on my phone.
Out, yeah.
And like my legs were so long. Like it looked so photoshopped. Like this looks awful. And I have some girls that send me them with like really close, and they're same thing. It's like their legs are spider legs. They're so long.
It's like the fish eye, and now everything's distorted. Like yeah.
They're gonna get goobed.
Yeah, they are. It's gonna be like, that's not, your legs are a mile long here. That is funny. Yeah. Cool. So number 1, training. Our most successful athletes, and many people's most successful athletes, send their training. So I challenge you, if you haven't done so yet, send your training this week.
Tag us.
Yes.
We want to see.
Yes. All right. So number 2 is communication. And I think that that is also a word that gets thrown around a lot, and people claim to be so good at communication. But what we're talking about here is more like open and effective communication. So what I mean by that is, instead of sending a very vague message, what I encourage my athletes to do is ask the question that you want the answer to. So sometimes, like for example, if somebody says, what are your thoughts on training fasted? In my head, I'm like, are you speaking about yourself? Are you asking for my general thoughts? Are you looking to get educated? Are you trying to train? Like, there's just so many things that come up for me as the coach that I don't really know where to go with that question. And so usually I'll ask them the question back, like, I'm trying to seek, like, what answer are you trying to get from me? And so when I'm asking for communication, what I would love from my athletes, and what my most successful athletes tend to do, is they're very concise and effective with their communication. They will ask the question they want the answer to. They will ask to have a conversation with me if it's needed, versus, I guess, beating around the bush or just not being very clear.
Yes. Completely agree with the communication piece. That's probably the number one reason that athletes and I don't work out. Like they leave at some point, and at some point there was miscommunication. Like maybe they were doing something that didn't, or I programmed something that didn't click for them very well, or was asking too much of them, and I didn't know at that point, and they didn't share that with me.
Right.
Or maybe they actually like were feeling a certain way for a certain amount of time and just never brought it to me, or something like that. But I feel like the biggest piece is always honest communication, because I feel like we've mentioned this a couple of times. People who work with a coach right off the bat have this wanting to please mentality, and I could not care less about being pleased. Like that is not my job. Is not to like you the most.
Right.
It's to get you the best results that I possibly can. And if I've chosen to work with you, I already like you. Like I don't work with enough people or have the need to work with people that I dislike. So don't even need to think about that. But being able to say, I don't like this, I do like this, letting me in on your internal world. One of the things that I don't care as much about is the conciseness. Like, I would rather someone say everything that they need to say, like get it all out instead of trying to condense it and like concentrate it when maybe they don't even know what's going on and they just need to literally type it all out, and then I can read it and be like, this is what I'm hearing from you. So I don't mind as much like longer form answers. Like, I know that there are some people that are like, it needs to be only the relevant information that I need to hear. The rest of it is just like noise or like whatever it is, whatever that analogy is. And I feel like one of my strengths actually is to be able to summarize and synthesize what people are saying. So just say all of the things. Like, your coach is intelligent. Hopefully they have some emotional intelligence and they can pick out and decipher what it is that you're trying to say. And then we can have like a really good communication about it.
Yeah, I like that piece. I think when I'm seeking conciseness is more around maybe like specific things that they're asking versus if they are telling me something. I mean, my athletes know, like, they can send me paragraphs, and I'm very similar to you in the way that like I enjoy getting to know them on a level deeper than just like a person, like an athlete. Like, you're not just my athlete, like you are a whole complex multidimensional person. And if I learn more about you and how you operate and how you think and how you feel, and you can communicate that to me like long form, it gives me a better understanding of them, and it feels like I can serve them better. So I do appreciate that aspect. And also, I feel like there's a time and a place, because sometimes, like, if it's just constant where I'm becoming like their sounding board for everything, that's a lot for me. And so I think I'm very lucky because I've been able to set boundaries with my athletes in that way, that like, hey, I want to help you here, but I think it might be helpful for you to like reach out to a close friend, or even like try therapy or something in that regard. Because I'm happy to hold space for them, but I also have my own things going on. So if it's constant, sometimes we'll have to have that conversation. But I think that that's just like in any relationship,
Yes.
like being able to have those honest conversations and setting boundaries with each other, I think is important, because it's not just me as the coach setting boundaries, but it's also the athletes can set expectations and boundaries of like what they need from me. Like, it can go both ways.
Yeah. I like what you said about them kind of being who they are. And I think the biggest thing is not trying to sound different than how you actually feel, like not trying to dress it all up for us to spare our feelings or anything else. Like, just say it how you would authentically say it. And that is going to be the easiest, most direct, honest piece of information that we can get. Like, don't try to water it down to make you sound harder than you actually are, or like more hardcore, or any of those things.
Yeah.
Like, just say what you want to say. Say it.
It goes back to like the people pleasing. Like, it's just, I think there is that want maybe to appear like stoic or able to handle the challenges. And so I've actually seen that too. Like, sometimes you get a message from an athlete and you feel like, okay, actually, I think that there's more here that you want to say, but at the end of what you said, you're like, but it's okay, I'm doing fine. And I'm like, but are you? Like, you don't have to be fine. You don't have to be okay. Like, we can talk about this.
If something's coming up and you're communicating it to me like it's a 4 out of 10 intensity, I'm going to treat it like it's a 4 out of 10 intensity. But if inside it's actually a 10 out of 10 and you're dissolving and there's like a hurricane and a volcano going on and I don't know that, of course I'm not going to be able to respond to you appropriately.
Right.
Like, no way.
Yeah. And I think that's where like the miscommunication comes in. So having that aspect of honest communication and expectations kind of managed, realistic, I think is really important.
And on the flip side of that, it can feel very vulnerable to the athlete to be open, especially because they don't really know anything about us. Like, we're not in there spilling our business, talking about all of the things. So I've tried to, like, if I'm having like a not great day, at least just be like, yeah, I'm having a little bit of a tougher day today, but like, I'm really still happy to see you and do all your check-ins and all of these things. Just make it seem like I also have bad days, or I also have feelings, or those kinds of things that they can sense, like, oh, like that's interesting, I didn't know, instead of just being like, nope, no, you don't get anything from me, but I expect everything from you.
Right. I think for me, I almost experience like a lot of that because my athletes are so involved in what I do. So with the podcast, with the newsletters, sometimes I'll write or I'll say something in here. And then my athletes, like the next week, will bring it up in their check-ins. And I'm like, oh, you guys are really following along. Y'all really know what's going on with me. But it is nice. Like it is very kind. And I think that them having that glimpse into what I am maybe going through or struggling with or celebrating, they can then see me as a human. They don't have me on this pedestal as like this out of reach, like great coach, competitor, influencer, whatever. Like they don't have a false idea of who I am. They know who I am and they have a good idea of what I do go through. And it makes them more willing to bring that to my table. Like they can then bring their things to me, which I think is very special. It's something that I don't take for granted. Just getting to know them on a deeper level and having them feel like they do get a little bit of reciprocity.
I love that.
Yeah.
I actually want to call myself out for a second because I'm noticing when we're talking about the open and effective communication and me saying like, oh, like we need to give that back. Like I noticed that there was a lot of times previously where I felt I couldn't do that. Like if I was having maybe like we're rubbing up against boundaries with a certain client and I didn't feel comfortable telling them that I'm in an uncomfortable space with them because I'm like, oh, that's not professional or that's going to make them feel X, Y, and Z. Like we also have those feelings or I also have those feelings and giving myself the permission to be like, oh, this is still a relationship and it does go both ways. Like we are not just robots. We do have feelings. We do care about you so deeply. And yeah, I want to just get better about being able to let my clients know that like, oh, like I would actually prefer to see this from you, or I would prefer a little bit less of this, or this is really difficult for me to hold right now. Let me get back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually think that creates a little bit of like respect, especially if the athlete is willing to, in a sense, like hold that space for you. Like if you can say, hey, I really want to think on this. Can I get back to you in X time? Usually they're like, yes, of course, no rush, take your time. Like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, you don't have to apologize. I'm just letting you know, like, this is a lot. I want to digest it, process it, and give you the answer that you deserve. Like, I want to speak on this when I've had the time to really process what you're giving me. Cause sometimes it is a lot. And I want to make sure that I serve them the best. And like one really good example that I'm even thinking of right now is when I think I was just going through like a really tough time. There's been a lot of tough times, but I had a posing athlete that I was supposed to pose with her at like 2 p.m. And I was like crying at 1:30. I was like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to like show up and bring her the energy and the passion and like the presence that she needs to do this posing session with me. So I felt really guilty, but I texted her. I was like, can we reschedule for another day? Because I'm not going to be able to bring the energy that I want into this session. And I remember her getting back to me and she was like, oh my gosh, of course. Like, I'm so sorry. I hope you're having a better day. Like, take your time. We can reschedule for another day. No problem. Like, she was just so compassionate and she wasn't mad because I understand like posing sessions, if you have like a 9-to-5 job, like you are taking time out of your middle of the day to like put on a suit and heels and pose. So it's not like it's just inconvenient. Yeah. And I hate to inconvenience my people, but I also realize like I'm human and if I can communicate with them, then they understand. And if I were to show up to that posing session and not give my best, she might be left with, that feeling. She wouldn't know why, but she would just be like, oh, I think Noah like didn't like me today. Yeah. Like, yeah. And I never want to give off that impression. So it's one of those things where like, hey, communication on both fronts, both ways, it's really helpful for us and the athletes.
Yeah. And as far as reasons why we might not, or like why I might not communicate very well, is I'm usually picturing the worst case scenario, the worst possible way someone could take the information that I am giving them. And it's always going to come back on me like 10 times worse. But maybe flipping that and reframing it as always seeing the best in that person. Like, how would the best version of this person respond to me when I'm having a really tough day or I'm bringing them very vulnerable, sensitive information? Can I trust that they will hold me like that? So can you do that with your coach?
Yes. Yes. And I think that both of us would agree, like our most successful athletes are able to do that because they do have that level of communication, emotional intelligence. There's a reciprocal kind of relationship there. And all of the athletes that I'm thinking of that like I would deem as like successful, they have excellent communication. And we've had exchanges where it does go both ways, where they can hold space for me and vice versa. So communication. Let's see. We had, this one was more, I think, from your side, creating expansive environments.
Yes, that is my favorite one ever. So I know I talk a lot about being open and being curious and being playful and making sure that your space reflects that as well. So not just like your external environment, like that's great too, but also like your internal environment, being open, doing things that feel expansive to you. Like also your coach should be in that sense like an expander for you. Like how can they help you reach your next edge and make that a really fun, enjoyable process for you? Does that make sense?
Yes. So along those lines, I feel like my most successful athletes bring into our check-ins or our interactions that playfulness, that curiosity, and they're willing to cultivate the environment around them to their success. So like, for example, I'm thinking of one athlete where we realized that she was having a little bit of food focus. And I asked her, I was like, well, what are you looking at? Like, what food pages are you following on Instagram? And she was like, oh, I've been watching the Great British Baking Show. And I was like, first of all, I love that show. Love it to death. Like one of my favorites. But I think that that is contributing to why you are so food focused and why you're struggling with adherence on your diet. It's because what you're putting in your environment is not allowing you to flow through your day. It's putting your attention towards food. And I know that it's for entertainment. Like I know that you sit there and watch the show and you're like, this is entertaining. But it's going to start creating that like, ooh, that looks good. Ooh, I might be a little hungry. Ooh, I don't want my food. I want a cookie or a brownie or a cake because that's what they make on the show. They make these amazing looking desserts. And I was like, what if we moved away from watching that show? Like, what if we watched a different kind of show? I like watching nature documentaries or like animal stuff. So
I didn't know this. This is new information.
Oh my gosh. So I love like how the planet works, planet Earth, all of those things where there's like, it follows along animals or nature. Love that. It helps me relax. So I was like, what if we did that for a week and just see if your food focus lessens? And if it doesn't, then okay. Like, let's go back to watching your favorite show. That's okay. But if this does help, then maybe we can start to put parameters around, okay, maybe you treat yourself with like an episode of that show, the food show, like once or twice a week. And it's like very intentional instead of just like binge watching the seasons every day, you know? And that actually really seemed to help her. And I feel like that's a very anecdotal example of kind of what we're talking about here. But creating that expansive environment can sometimes look like curating your social media or like the media that you're consuming to help you in those goals, whether it's like limiting certain exposure or like, I guess, watching things that would help be conducive to your goals. So like,
creating an environment that makes you want to grow.
Yes.
And I think you do a really great job of this. Like living with you for the past few days, like your fitness life and your social life, they are so well blended together that it doesn't feel like there's this big hiccup. It doesn't feel like you have friends that are counterintuitive and counterproductive for your goals and like who you are aligned with, because your fitness and everything else does overlap so much. And I really love seeing that in you, which is why I brought it up when I was like, oh, I think this would be a really good one. Yeah, just the way that you have like your walk set up and your meal set up and your timing of everything. It just seems like there's a lot of non-negotiables, and it seems like it's very easy for you to expand in the space that you have created for yourself. Also with your support system. Like me, Zach, Megan, like all of them seem very supportive and aligned with what you want to do and who you authentically are. It doesn't feel like you're trying to fit a mold that wasn't made for you.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's almost like very natural, like autopilot at this point. It's not autopilot's a bad word. It's not like I'm doing it without thinking, but it is very integrated. And I've been very purposeful with that. Like especially the last probably year, I've spent a lot of intentional time like asking myself if bodybuilding was no longer a thing, if we couldn't step on stage, if social media were to like cease to exist, would I still do the things that I do every day? And the answer is yes. Like I love getting up and going for walks. I love doing cardio. I love training. I love eating my meals. And even though like sometimes we might miss the timings, like I do have my timers because I do try to stick to my schedule so that I can get my meals in. Like it's something that I'm not very good at in the growth season. Prep, I would never miss a meal on my timing, but like right now, because I think the season that I'm in, but it is something that I've very much purposefully cultivated because I know that bodybuilding is really important to me. And I think that the athletes that we see are most successful, whether it's bodybuilding or not, like maybe their lifestyle, maybe their goals are different, but they're most successful because they've done the same thing. Like whether they're like moms with kids or, 9 to 5 corporate girlies, they have set their schedule up to have less of that like friction or resistance. Like if they have their 9 to 5, I have some girls who wake up at 4, go to the gym before work. And it's not because they have to achieve their goal. It's because they want to, and that's the time that they can. And I think that creating your environment that way is really important because that's what's going to carry you through. It'll create some consistency. I keep hitting this mic. Hopefully this is not jarring the sound, but I'm like tapping this mic right now.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and asking, okay, like, do I have an expensive or contractive environment? Like, does the environment that you're in right now make you want to grow? Does it make it easy for you to take that next step? Maybe easy isn't the right word, but does it just seem like a natural progression, or does it seem like you're constantly butting heads with your goals and there's always something coming up? Like, not to call out like relationships, but I hear a lot like my boyfriend's coming over and like we're doing these things and like I don't want to do the meals this way or anything else like that. Like not saying you need to get rid of that relationship in any way, but just noticing like, oh, like this is a space that it feels like who you're becoming and who you are currently are not they're jarring. They're not clicking very well.
That's a really great point. I think that a lot of people experience that because when you are going through some sort of fitness journey or prep or anything really, we've talked about it so much, but it's a process and you are changing and growing. Like you don't stay the same through the process. The process is changing you. You are changing through the process. And sometimes like relationships, if your partner doesn't see that or isn't willing to almost go with you in their own way, it can be very jarring, very hard. And that's a hard place to be. I wouldn't necessarily say like dump him.
Yeah.
But it could warrant a conversation that like, hey, I'm trying to achieve X goal, whether that's, losing weight, stepping on stage, gaining muscle, whatever it is. And I feel resistance when we have to have dinner together out at a restaurant. I just want to eat my prepped meals. How can we do that? And something that I always tell people is, especially with relationship stuff, you don't want to go in and attack them. No. You don't want to go in with like, you're preventing me from reaching my goals. You suck. You're doing all this. Like you. You don't want to approach a conversation like that. You want to be very cognizant about how you're feeling and communicate like I feel and I'm trying to do this. How can we together find a solution?
Yeah.
And I say all this and I'm kind of laughing in the back of my head because this is something I'm still working on. Because sometimes I get upset and I'm like, you are annoying me. And then Zach is like, you are choosing to be annoyed. I'm not annoying you. Oh. And I just stand there and I'm like, don't use stoicism on me. Like, don't use what I've taught you on me. But
I feel like those conversations, usually are just, again, being scared of what the other person is going to say. Like, oh, they're not going to want to change, or they're going to think that I'm to this or to that. And instead seeing this is a person who has chosen to spend this portion of their life with you. They love you. They care about you. They want the best for you. They know that you have a coach. Hopefully you're not keeping us from them. But just see that in them. See the goodness in them that really wants to support you and wants you to have everything that you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I feel like that was a bullet point like 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have our successful athletes send their training, have open communication, create expansive environments, and environments not just, physical location, but like also the people that you spend your time with, right? Your relationships, your friendships, your coworkers, all of that stuff. What are some other things that your most successful athletes do?
They do not make everything about fitness. Like, fitness is not the only part of their life, and they have other things going on. Like, they have hobbies, they have friends, they have a job that they really care about, or a creative outlet that isn't just fitness. I notice the people that are the most like tight and clenched and contracted, and like it's not happening fast enough. And my most impatient athletes, if you will, this is everything to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the commitment. I love the devotion, the dedication to the process and where they're going. And also when it starts to have this desperation, it needs to happen this way. And I know it's like a really powerful word that a lot of people don't like, but when it has this like desperate, this needs to happen for me right now, there's no room for this to breathe. There's no room for this to grow. So having other things that makes the time go by a little bit faster, that makes any maybe like downsides or slowness to the process, because obviously it doesn't take 3 weeks. It's not like a 21-day cleanse where you just get everything you want after. No, it takes time. And if you're watching the grass grow, looking at yourself in the mirror every single second of every single day, of course you're not seeing progress. And of course you're frustrated. So how else can we spend that time? Can you go for walks? Can you go try a class? Can you go dancing? Can you make other friends? Like, what else can you do outside of fitness to pour into just as much?
Yeah, I love this. What do you do? Like,
I do yoga, which I feel like is still fitness adjacent, but it doesn't feel fitness adjacent. I really enjoy yoga. I really enjoy reading. I love singing my musicals. I feel like that's always a controversial one. Nobody likes my musicals, which makes me so sad. But I love, just anything artsy, anything creative, travel. I feel like there's not really many things that I'm like, no. Except space movies. I don't like space movies.
Space movies?
Space movies are a no-go. But other than that, like, I'm just like open to a good time, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Very specific. Do you feel like Dune is a space movie?
I think that's why I hadn't watched it previously. Because Siba loves Dune.
Yeah.
But I haven't watched it. We watched Interstellar and that was a good one. But I feel like there's something about space movies that I'm just like, meh.
That's fine. That is A-okay. Just so y'all know, I made her watch Dune with me. And now I'm like, oh man, she hated it.
I didn't know. It was interesting for like the half that I saw. I didn't really get it, but there was a worm and they were doing things.
There's a lot that happens in Dune for sure. We were watching the first one because I want to go see the second one. But I like that a lot. And I'm wondering, do you encourage your athletes to do something outside of fitness? Sometimes like in my athletes check-ins, I'll assign that to them because I feel like they're getting a little bit constrained, like they're getting frustrated, like where are my results? It's not happening fast enough. I'm like, this week, in addition to sending your training videos, I would love for you to go do one non-fitness thing and be in it fully, like try to disconnect, don't have your phone on you, no headphones. Like sometimes I'll suggest something if they're like, I don't know what to do. But sometimes I'm like, one non-fitness thing, I need you to go be very intentional with that this week and report back to me.
Yes.
And 100% of the time, it's great results. Like they're just like, I needed that. Like, thank you so much. I'm like, you're welcome. Let go a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, I had one of my athletes, we were working with her on more of her feminine energy. And she was really like, I'm drawn to gardening. I was like, perfect. You go create a really good garden. And she sends me like little pictures of her plants now. And she's really excited about them. I have other athletes that go to raves. And I know that's also a very controversial thing in the fitness space. I've seen a lot of coaches be like, if you're going to raves, you don't care about your goals. And I don't think that's accurate, like at all. Like obviously if you're going and getting smashed with like 12 different substances and 5 billion different cocktails and you're trying to set a record for how many substances you can have at one time, maybe it's not the best. And like going out, having a good time, listening to music, dancing, moving, like get your steps in.
Yeah.
Have a nice time. Enjoy yourself, please.
Yeah. I love that. And I have seen that like stigma. And I wonder, I've always wondered why fitness and raving has seemed to go hand in hand, because I didn't know anything about raving. I'd never been to a rave until I really got into the bodybuilding scene. So it's kind of funny that like, I just feel like there's a little bit of there's like a handshake moment there, like fitness and raving.
Yeah. I feel like dubstep for lifting is nice.
Yeah, because it's like
Subtronics during a leg set does not get better. PR'd every time.
Dude, meanwhile, I'm over here listening to like Drake.
Yeah.
Sad Drake. Sad songs.
Yeah. Oh no.
I love the sad boy vibes when I'm lifting. So if y'all are curious what's in my headphones.
Do you know what I've been listening to lately for my PR song?
Mm-mm.
I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan.
Oh, I like that.
It's like that is the only person that's allowed to shame me into doing more reps.
Yeah. You're like, I'll take it. We'll do it.
Yeah. So listen to that one. It's great.
I feel like my successful athletes are really good at self-regulating, like in that way. So they can tell like when maybe things are getting a little bit restrictive. They'll let me know, hey, I really want to do a Pilates class, or I really want to go hiking with my partner in the mountains this weekend. Like, is it okay if we have a diet break or something? Whatever it is, I love that. So I really appreciate that you brought up doing things outside of fitness. I think that's really important to cultivate, and that's something that I've also done myself, like book club, Toastmasters, like all these things that I enjoy doing outside of fitness have brought so much passion back into my fitness, because I have all of these different areas that I can focus on. It's like, wow, I am like not even thinking about bodybuilding anymore. Like I'm doing it, but it's not my whole life, because it definitely used to be something that I was like, I have to go pro. I have to get to the Olympia. Like I have to do all this stuff in 5 years so that it's impressive, so that everyone thinks I'm great. And now it's like, why am I in a rush? Like I have so much time.
I hope you saw that I just perked up when you said self-regulated. I absolutely love that. And I feel like I don't really care as much about learning more about training and biomechanics and lever arms, or like when you have to implement refeeds and all of these things. Like the most important and most interesting thing that has translated to my fitness lately has been the self-regulation and the nervous system regulation piece, which is like yoga and thinking about the types of foods that you put in your body and what you do outside of the gym. Like that is so important. And I've seen so much more progress when I started focusing on those things, which is, I guess, the bodybuilding way of saying like stress management. Stress management equals self-care equals self-regulation.
Yep.
Equals success.
Yes. If you're looking for the short formula, I feel like that's what it would be. Is if you want to be successful in bodybuilding, you can't just focus on bodybuilding. There has to be more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which also seems counterintuitive, because everyone in the space is like, you have to go all in. And like, sure, you can go all in on this cup, you know, but like you also have a bunch of other cups. Like you still have a family, you still have a career, you still have relationships, you still have dogs that need your love and affection.
Yes, you still have a lot of responsibilities. And I like what you said there. Like you can go all in on bodybuilding and have other cups to fill. Going all in on bodybuilding is very much like kind of what we were describing earlier. Like I just do the things. It's not like, oh man, I don't want to walk at all today. Like boo, steps, or I don't want to drink water. That sounds horrible. It's like, no, I don't think about it. It just gets done. At the end of the day, I know that I've drank a gallon of water. I've hit my steps. I've trained if it's a training day. Those things are just done, and there's not a lot of resistance, but I haven't focused on it. Like in the moment when I'm training, yes, I'm focused on training. But as soon as training's done, I go home, I'm not beating myself up about like, oh, I wonder if I could have done that better. I wonder if I could have got more reps or done a different set, or like it's 100% in the moment, and then you move on. And there's like so much time in your day that I don't think bodybuilding should be the whole day, should be you as a whole person. There's just so much more.
Yeah. When I worked at First Form, one of the things that I learned from Sal Frizella that really stuck with me was that he balances everything, because he has kids and all of that, all the fun stuff. He's got so much going on. He's like, I literally just give my full attention to what's in front of me right now. Like when I'm here, I'm working. When I'm at home, I'm with my kids, and that's all that there is to it. Like there is nothing else. So being not compartmentalizing, but just being present with what is right now. Are you actually at the gym at 1 a.m. when you're wondering if you could have gotten 2 more? Like, no, you're supposed to be sleeping. Go to bed.
Yeah.
That's what being present is about.
Yeah. I really appreciate that summary because it is like being present. And if y'all have listened to this podcast for long enough, you know, like over the last year, that is something that I've been really heavily focusing on is present, like being here in the now, being present, because truly that's all the time that you have. You can spend time ruminating on the past and being anxious about the future, but really all you are is like right here, right now. And just carrying that forward into the rest of your day and realizing that like the different things you're doing, whether it's for bodybuilding, fitness, family, career, relationship, if you can just stay present, you will have a much more enjoyable time.
Yeah. In anything, not just in fitness, in life. Take that with you everywhere.
And if you're enjoying it and you're having fun, you're more likely to stay consistent and find the success that you're looking for. So just to like wrap all of this up in like a nice, neat bow, it truly takes just a few things to reach success. And a lot of people stop short of success. And you could define success in many different ways. But I feel as though a lot of people stop themselves short of reaching their desired success because they aren't consistent over time and present in the moment. There's just a lot of external noise happening and they allow that to come in. And so if you can take some of these things that we talked about today, hopefully that can help you stay a little bit more present in the moment and you'll reach that success that you're looking for faster than trying to like chokehold it.
And more sustainably.
Yes. And sustainably.
We like sustainability here.
We do. So just to recap, our successful athletes, and I feel like we also consider ourselves successful athletes. I don't know about you. I feel like I'm a successful athlete. Megan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm terrible. I don't know. But successful athletes will send their training videos, have open, honest communication with their coaches, create an expansive environment, bring play into their day. And you said a really good one. And now it's escaping my mind.
Oh no, we have a list.
We do have a list. We have falling in love with the process.
We touched on that pretty much already, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you want to expand on it.
Yeah. It is really process oriented. I think I said it on a different episode that we did, but there is no end to the journey. It's called a journey for a reason. It's not like you're on a bus and then you get there and then you hop off and then you're in this like fantasy happy land that you've always dreamed about. Like, no, that would be no fun. Like you're on either your hero's journey or your heroine's journey, whichever one you prefer. And the more that you can settle into that and see everything as a part of the process instead of this is symbolic of the entire experience that I'm having because I'm having a bad day, or oh, I just had a really high, so now my entire thing looks like this. Like, no, enjoy the peaks and the valleys. Be open to all of them. What books, what movies, what stories do you care about that are always like all happy-go-lucky or all just miserable? None. You like the ups and downs. We like chaos a little bit.
A little bit. Awesome. I like that. I think that that's a really great place to wrap this up. But I did want to ask, is there anything else that stands out to you, like with your successful athletes or anything that we didn't touch on in here?
I think my most successful athletes are the least serious. Like they're sincere that they really want to push themselves and they want to go this route and it feels right for them and they're curious and open to learning, but it's not serious, do or die, this needs to happen this way. And if I could summarize all of that, I think that adding more sincerity and less serious to your life in general will do you a lot of good.
Yeah, I love that.
Yay.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, it is amazing to have you here. And thank you, Lexa, for being here as well. If you guys have any questions, comments, if you want to discuss anything that we touched on in here or expand a little bit further, feel free to reach out to our DMs. Our information will be linked below. If you could, like, share, subscribe, send this episode to a friend. I would highly, highly appreciate that. I hope that you guys are having a fabulous week, and I will catch you on the next one. Stay relentless.